My name is Stacy Renee. If you don't already know, if you do already know, well, then you already know that I'm a mindset coach and a life coach and a life on life's terms coach. And Friday night is my thing to get to come on here and hang out with you all. I pick a topic every week and we kind of stick with that topic and continue to grow and expand on that topic rather than give you a whole lot of information in a short amount of time that you can digest, because nothing's a one and done like that. So what I do as a mindset coach is I try to help people reverse those patterns, try to help people interrupt patterns and, break cycles, breaking cycles and interrupting patterns. That's what we do here. Just have a good evening of talking and chatting and affirming what a lot of people already believe, and then kind of giving other people who may not have thought about some things a different way of thinking about things. So that's what we do on here. That's what I do as a mindset coach. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a doctor of any sort, so I don't share information on that. But it's just a bunch of people getting together to ponder things. Maybe you're in the house, and like I'm in the house, and so it's a great Friday night date. So thank you for being here. So we're going to talk about compatibility tonight. So on Monday night, we talked about compatibility with yourself, because unfortunately, a lot of us don't think about compatibility until a job, a relationship, or we're having troubles with the family or things like this, and we realize, oh, I didn't sign up for this, or this isn't for me, or what have you. And, I like us to think that we can learn and grow. No time is ever wasted. A lot of people feel like they're wasting time in these relationships, so they just bounce. When a relationship doesn't work, they bounce to another relationship. But the real deal is that we all have these wounds. And a lot of these wounds aren't realized. And until we are able to get honest with ourselves. So that was one thing that we talk about on here, is about, are you able to get honest with yourself? That's very important, to be able to get honest with ourselves, because if we're not honest with ourselves, we're not going to believe other people or trust other people. So trust has been a part of a lot that we talk about on here, is the self-trust. That in compatibility, that self-trust changes every relationship. When you trust yourself, that's where your trust really starts. A lot of us fear that we don't have compatibility, because on Wednesday we talked about, is your picker broke? Because so many people tell me, my picker's broke, and so they just settle. Sometimes people settle in relationships thinking that their picker's broke, and that's not really, that's what one of the people in here said is self-depreciating, and it really is. It's important what we say to ourselves and how we're going to learn to love and trust ourselves. Thank you for those hearts. I love those hearts. That's my thing. I love them. So, I am not even saying your name. I love you too, darling. Kim. So hi, Kim Chow. Hello. So we're talking about compatibility on here this evening. We've talked about, on Monday night, we talked about, are you compatible with yourself? This is something that many people, well, thank you. Thanks, Kim Chow. This is a lot of times people don't ask, am I compatible with myself? We're looking at other people. Am I compatible with them? But, I'm going to give you a chance. Kim's in the house, and I'm not even going to say your name. But Kim's in the house, and we need to stay on topic. We are talking about compatibility, and we're not talking about those guys. So we're talking about compatibility begins with you, and how self-trust changes every relationship. Because when you trust yourself, you quit chasing. You quit feeling like you're defeated when you trust yourself. So that's where we've led to from Monday night. Are you compatible with yourself? We don't ask ourselves that, but until we know what we're compatible with ourselves, then we're not going to know if we're compatible with somebody else. And unfortunately, oftentimes, Jason Stillwell, hello, it's good to see you this evening. I'm glad you're wonderful tonight. I'm wonderful tonight too, because I'm with you good people up in here. So I hope that you've had a good week so far, and, through everything. So on Wednesday night, what did we talk about? We talked about if your picker is broke, because a lot of people just cop to, my picker's broke. So we talked about some of the values that we need to have to see if we're compatible with other people. I'm doing good, Chrissy. It's good to see you here. Thank you. Thank you. So we're talking about compatibility tonight. So, you know, in talking about this, like I said, Monday night, or are you compatible with yourself? If any of you thought about, am I compatible with myself? I know Jason Stillwell's in a good relationship. And Kim, it never hurts to ask ourselves, though, if we're compatible with ourselves. And what this means is I know what my values are, because that's what we talked about on Wednesday. What are my values? We talked about integrity. A lot of us feel like if we receive this outside of ourselves, but no, honesty, integrity, these things are inside of us. And when we're honest with ourselves, we're not going to settle for stuff that's not aligned with us and stuff that isn't aligned with our values. John London, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you. I'm glad that you're here. So the thing is that, from growing from are you compatible with yourself to is your picker broken and what are your values, is that we become what we're looking for. I talked also about how sometimes we have this bar so high that we can't even reach it, and it's all about that protection. When we grow from those survival skills and out of that protection mode to where we have rules, because, values aren't rules and boundaries are part of values. So my boundaries being respected. How many people in here feel like they're not compatible with people after their boundaries are disrespected? You can figure out in the beginning of whether it's family, work, or relationships, friendships, and partnerships, if your boundaries are being respected. If your boundaries aren't being respected, maybe you're not compatible. I know for me, that's not compatibility. Now, if you want to keep doing the same thing over and over and think that it's passion, because we talked about how some people mistake chaos for passion, yet people show you who they are with time and attention. They sure do. So that's why it's important to take things slow, right, John London? Is that instant gratification. When people are seeking instant gratification, that's something that's going to make them feel better right away, is it seems like it's the easy way. And we want to be connected, but sometimes it's easy in the beginning to think that we're connected to somebody. But later on, we see those red flags as they talk about. It's easier to see those red flags before we give too much, right? So it's just about matching energy to have a mutual relationship. Eileen, maybe your intuition is on point and what you're looking for is rare. Just been patient and form relationship. Absolutely. Thank you, is it Eileen? Eileen? So, yes, Christy, connection does take time. I got some amazing folks up in here tonight. I can tell already. John London, that's why I say snakes gonna be snakes. Trust people to be who and what they are. Absolutely, John London. Yes, it is true. If it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's a duck. If it barks like a dog, it's a dog. And half the time, my daddy used to say the guilty dog barks first. So honest, and trust is part of these values that we have. And so it's hard to have that. So it's like a lot of times when these things are broken, sometimes when people feel like they're broken, they say, what's the matter with me? But when you have value and you realize the values in yourself, you think to yourself, okay, do I want somebody who lies to me? I get to choose that. It's not like I have to just shuffle along with that. Do I want somebody, yeah, right? Do I want somebody who does this? This is what I ask myself when I'm feeling like my values are being, trampled on a little bit or, what have you. And if we could talk about it. But not everybody is willing to have a talk with you. Some people, just because you're a good person doesn't mean that you're always going to attract somebody that's like-minded or that, is going to have values like yours. So that's very important to take the time to move on. Morning. Okay, thanks, Christopher. I hope you have a good Friday night. So, become what you're looking for. And that means that match that energy, just be. So this is the payoff. People spend years making lists of what they want. Usually when I'm working with single folks, I'm like, make a list of what you want, because it's hard to, turn around and go the other way when you've got a list of what you want. Would you date a 49-year-old man? Mr. Inappropriate, that's not part of our talk here, and it really isn't, isn't, so thank you. But I hope you'll stay and that you'll, be able to listen to this topic and that it will be able to help. I've got my notes here so that I can see the comments. I appreciate all your comments. Thank you so much. What we don't talk about on here is religion and politics, my age, and my dating stats. So there we go. There we go. Sometimes we talk about it a little bit. We talk about our dating stats, but all right. Okay. So people spend years making lists of what they want. Make the list so that you don't deviate from the list, because somebody can come in smooth talking and these kind of things, but you need to recognize. Because chances are, if you have felt tricked in the past and not trusting yourself, somebody's come in all smooth talking before. She could pull a 30. I know, right? Right, Kim? So, good. Hello. Good evening, beautiful mama. So might be what's on your list. Kind, emotionally available, honest, calm, responsible, present, curious, safe. But ask them if that describes you and watch. I've had people be very flattering to me. Then I would see how they treated other people. And whether it's at work, whether it's, somebody that I'm just friends with, because I like to walk a lot and people like to walk with me. But if I see them slam on the back of a taxi driver's car or be mean to, or act like superior to traffic or anything like that, I'm not compatible with that. Mm-mm. So how many of those things describe you? Responsible, honest, calm, curious, safe. What's the 5 topics to bring up in a date? You know what? I think that's a good topic for a video. Let me write that down. I don't know right off my head. But I would think I'm kind of old-fashioned. So I would say, what's your family like? Do you have brothers, sisters? Do you have pets? Do you like dogs? What are your favorite things that you like to do? Do you read? Do you, these kind of things. The things not to do is bring up your past relationships the first date, because you don't need a relationship based on broken relationships. So, yeah, anybody else have some ideas on what to bring up on a first date? Yes, what are your values? Very good, Kim. See, that's what I love about Kim, man. Kim takes notes. She's learning. So, yes, what are your values? That's a topic to bring up on a date. A lot of people may not think about their values. I know probably if somebody would have asked me 20, 30 years ago what my values were, I would have been like dumbfounded. I'd been like, trust, honesty, faithfulness. What are your dreams? Yes, John Linden, what are your dreams? That's a good one too. So see, there you go. Is it Hama or Jama? Hama? So I'm down here in Mexico, so our G's are silent down here is why I ask. So how many of those things describe you that I said before? And not as a criticism, but it's an invitation. So energy recognizes energy. That's the thing. And a lot of people can be kind at first. A lot of us and other people love ourselves in the beginning of a new and exciting relationship. But to show up as we are. I know that the last date that I had, I went out, I had makeup on the first night that I went out with them. And then they wanted to see me a second time before they went back to their country. And I didn't put makeup on. I did not. I thought, I'm showing up on these things the way that I am. Because I just didn't feel like putting makeup on that day. I don't know if I scared them off because I don't know who the person was on the second date. And this is what I'm telling y'all, is you don't know who people are. And it's best just to show up as ourselves, So energy recognizes energy, and integrity recognizes integrity. And peace recognizes peace. And growth recognizes growth. Compatibility grows from congruence. So whoever we're showing up as, Jason Stillwell, we must know our own value first. Yes, yes. Once we know that, it becomes easier to filter out who and what we're not compatible with. Absolutely. But I always tell people to make a list of what they want, in a partner, and even what you want in a job. You didn't get to pick your family most of the time, or maybe you did when you were in another sphere. But true, only through authenticity can a healthy relationship grow and blossom. Absolutely. So, absolutely. And it's taken that time and showing up as ourselves. You know, I used to try to put the makeup on every time and to look pretty every time, but the reality is I'm not going to look pretty every time. I'm sometimes just going to be me. I want to be that kind of person that if you just come to my door, which most people are not going to just come to my door, but after a period of time, somebody could just come to my door, and I don't want to have to feel like I've got to run and put makeup on every time somebody comes to the door. The cardinal rule is to be yourself, know yourself, and come as you are. Absolutely. When I go to work, yes, I have to put on, look awake, alive, alert, and aware, and sometimes that involves makeup. And so when I was younger, I didn't always have to wear makeup, but when anyway, I digress. So one thing is the more the more compatible you become with yourself, the less you'll chase people who aren't compatible with you. See, a lot of times when we're, yes, being ourselves, because then, then we know if we're compatible with somebody, right? As if, hello, King to Bag, it's good to see you. So if we, know that we're compatible with ourselves and we show up as ourselves, then whoever shows up and keeps showing up, we know is likely to be compatible. But if we, if they show up in that second date, they're like, oh, where'd your makeup go? Or something like that, oh, they're not compatible, which didn't happen in this case. But I think that it was more so that I just didn't get overexcited because the person was trying to really impress me. And it's like just being yourself, like John London says. Somebody doesn't have to, act grandiose to try to impress me. I want people to be as they are. So we've discussed throughout the week the different aspects of compatibility. Like I said, on Monday, we talked about opening up to compatibility and being open to the thought of it rather than now than later. Are we compatible with ourselves? Realizing that we're not looking for ourselves outside of ourselves. We're not looking for love outside of ourselves. We're coming, we are love. I had to learn this. I am love. I used to give my love away like tokens anytime somebody was nice to me. But when I started valuing myself, then I quit doing that. It's like not everybody is for me. And I don't need just because somebody is flattering me because they have an attraction to me doesn't mean that we're compatible. Men prefer no makeup, less is more. All right. I'm batting 100 there then, huh? That's why I don't wear makeup. You get what you see with me. I know you do, girl. I know you do. And I know your man carries your picture around in his phone. He just loves you. There you are. You are just as cute first thing in the morning as you are at dinner. I haven't got to see you much in the morning time, but I have got to see you at dinner time. And you're still pretty cute, girl. So on Monday, we talked about that. And sometimes physical attraction may draw us toward people for our healing. See, that's the thing, is for our healing. Sometimes we've been attracted to what's familiar and hope that we don't verbally attach what to it. These are my notes. So sometimes I can't even read my notes. Sometimes we don't communicate our values in the beginning, like Jason was saying. Communicating those values in the beginning, which if we notice maybe later when we're hurting, they become more important. Those values become more important when we're hurting. You'll send me the first thing in the morning picture? Okay. So we may feel that we're fighting to keep our values later on in a relationship, right? It's if you don't state them in the beginning, like what was said in those 5 things that we could talk about in the beginning of a relationship, you might be fighting for your values later. I know that's happened with me. I don't know about anybody else in here. I think Jason says, I think that's a big part of it. Can you be yourself around someone and do they accept you the way you are? I think my lady friend is beautiful when she has very little makeup on. See, I know, right? I think makeup's good for going out, but for chilling out, I think it's just good to be ourselves. I don't, yeah. Y'all are amazing up in here. Hi, Chatty on. So, if we notice maybe later when we're hurting, those values become more important. We may feel like we're fighting to keep them, and we may blame others and villainize them, thinking that they tricked us, right? Because, like John London says, listen to them, because they probably are not tricking you. They probably told you who they were all along. How many of you have said, "Oh, but I see potential," right? Who has said, I see potential? I know I'm not the only one who said, I see potential. I see potential. What this means is if we're saying, I see potential, what I have learned from myself is to say, thank you, John London. I appreciate that. So the thing is when we say, I see potential. We are trying to we will end up trying to change that person. We will end up trying to control that person. We will end up trying to do things that we have no power over that person. And this is to prove to ourselves that we are valuable. But doesn't that mean you're gonna try? Exactly, Kim. That's just exactly it. If we say, "Oh, I see potential," it does mean that we're trying to change people. And how many people have said that? I see potential in this person, and then they try to change them, and then they realize that that person is who they are. You can't, we can't. And half the time, people are trying to make people into people that they want them to be. They don't even know who that is, because what? They don't know their values, because they're still coming from their wounded parts of themselves, just to feel like if I have some control, I can prove to myself that I'm worthy of love. I've been on the receiving end of that. People trying to control me and change me. And it's like, oh, no, you don't get to be in my head or in my dialogue. It's like, no. So, typically a lot of people will villainize and feel tricked by people when they see their potential. I can fix her. Shouldn't really need to try and change anyone, but can admire where they're growing and who they're becoming, I suppose. Yeah. The reality is we learn that I can't fix anybody. I like the way you put that, John London. I can't fix anybody but myself. See, when we learn that when we're trying to fix somebody else, probably there's a wound in us that needs healing. We probably need fixing too, or we wouldn't be thinking that we can fix other people. Because when the reality comes down to it, healing is a choice, fixing is a choice. It's not something that just magically happens because you put energy into somebody, right? That doesn't mean that you're compatible with somebody because you want to fix them. In fact, you're not. So, okay. So in the end, we are with ourselves, because we end up when we can't fix somebody, we're going to end up with ourselves. The live doesn't do this woman justice, y'all. She has natural beauty and such a light about her. Well, thank you, darling. I just love you. And I know I got to actually give you a hug in real live person a little over a year ago. So yes, I have gotten to see Miss Kim in public. So we realize our qualities and our value as we heal, rather than allowing it to diminish our self-image and how we see ourselves. See, when we understand our value. So week 1, we looked at becoming compatible with ourselves. Our relationship with ourselves is an extension to everyone else. How we feel about ourselves is what we're going to project or reflect onto everyone else. is how we navigate through this life. So Wednesday we discussed what our values were and how to associate them with ourselves rather than freely giving our value away without thought, and the reality that many of us were never asked about our values. Like growing up, we weren't asked about our values. So this is why a lot of times we don't realize the importance of having values in the beginning of a relationship, like I said, because a lot of times our family didn't talk about family values. We had rules. We had rules, but not values. And so we have to learn our own values. Hello, Jim C. So, you know, we were taught rules. A lot of us were taught expectations, responsibilities, and sometimes even survival, but values are different from that. Values become our internal compass about what do I want? What do I want to do? What's going to align with my values? Suffered the rose-tinted glasses once. Love was blind, and I wouldn't try to change anyone again. I know, John London, haven't we all? Haven't we all? I was talking about that, remember, on Wednesday I was talking about how we will have that blind love, or love is blind, is what we do when we don't realize who we are and our values when we go into a relationship. And sometimes we try to fit into other people's rules, right? Because a lot of people got rules, because a lot of us were brought up with those rules because our parents just didn't know any better. There wasn't talk about boundaries probably until the 70s. And most of our parents weren't lined up to say, "Ooh, let me learn about boundaries." So values become our internal compass. They guide us, they guide our decisions when life becomes uncertain. When life's uncertain, we have values. And it helps us recognize when we're living in alignment with what we want, what we have wanted for ourselves, who we are. We need to know ourselves because no one else outside of us is going to give us our identity. I love that saying, we're like our first 5 friends. And there's really 3 of us in my first 5, but I love who they are. And it makes me happy that those are my top. John London, a bit like, if it ain't free, it ain't for me, but with free flow and natural love. Definitely shouldn't feel one-sided or forced in any way if it's right. That's right. So when we recognize our value and our values, and we can, talk about those comfortably. How many people are afraid to talk about values and these kind of things in a relationship because they're already trying to, in the beginning of, whether it's a job interview and a job, we get so excited to go into a job and then we may not really know that much about it. I work with clients, and some of my clients have had to get different jobs. And so I asked her, the one, I said, well, how long has she got 2 job offers finally? It was like, first she was feeling defeated, growing through this change of having to find a job after she'd been at her job for 8 years or so. And so she's having to redo everything. And so when she did get 2 job offers, one was familiar, one she could work from home. She could be working in the familiar atmosphere. And then she had a choice of going into an office at least 4 days a week and learning something new, but it paid significantly more money. And it's like, well, do you want to stay where you are, or do you want to move forward? So she ended up taking the one where she would learn something new. So it was about learning to be aligned with her values. There was somewhere else I was going with that, but that's what we discussed. And so maybe it'll come back in a minute. Stuff does sometimes. John London, some people's love really is conditional or transactional, though, unfortunately. Absolutely, John London. It's kind of like learned, because a lot of times kids felt like that they had to behave a certain way to be seen and to be heard. And if they could do that, and so then they've got these other people in codependency. Angela's not here yet, or should be asking some great questions about this, but in codependency, what happens is we give people these scripts that they don't have the script. We have a script that we want them to behave by, that we want them to operate by, that we want them to take care of us for those wounds or whatever we felt like we didn't have, or that we're afraid we're not going to get. And so, but these people don't have the script, so they don't do what we want them to do. So then we take that as an idea and a notion that our value isn't much because they're not doing for us what we want them to do without us telling them what it is we want or need. We think that they should know, and that comes from all this old belief system of seeing people say, well, they should know. No, no. You have to use your words. I had to learn to use my words. And then I could get a better self esteem when I learned how to use my words. And maybe I got rejected, and then I got to make choices based on that rejection. If it was about me, the rejection was about me, or the rejection wasn't. If it was a rejection I could live with, they are. Angela's got some great questions. I mean, yeah. And so the codependency, she would be sure to bring up the codependency. And that's just like what you're talking about. Conditional love is codependent people codependent people want unconditional love, and they think they're giving unconditional love because they're not coming from their own value system. And so they're selling themselves short and then blaming somebody else, villainizing somebody else because the person isn't given back to them, because it is transactional. And the person isn't given back to them based on how they behaved. So yeah, there's a lot of expectations. I know when I worked on my own codependency, because I had codependency. I'm not proud of it, but yeah, I am proud that I worked on it. And I got to learn not everything was about me, and I get to work with people on it. I get to work with amazing people on it because they're not bad people. We just don't know what we know until we know. And so I had to learn not everything's about me. There's my business, God's business is somebody else's business. And, about my expectations. So, yeah. Those expectations are what you're talking about, John London, with conditional love. There comes expectations and obligations. The tit for a tat and a this for a that. It's a mess. It's a mess. So our values, guide our decisions when life becomes uncertain. So some of us may have seen unhealthy relationships modeled. So learning to nurture healthy relationships rather than just to survive. Because a lot of it's survival skills when people are feeling like they're defeated in relationships and that their picker is broke. Because when they see modeled to them broken relationships, there's no way we're going to know how to have a healthy relationship if a broken relationship was modeled. We don't just automatically snap out of it, because there were things with our central nervous system that, like I said, hello, demonic angel, that go with our central nervous system that helped us to create those survival skills. How we manipulate because we don't want to be hurt. That's the thing. So the summary is, compatibility is with yourself and others. It's going to be a reflection from yourself. So if you love yourself, you're going to have genuine love for others. That doesn't mean that it's romantic. It doesn't mean anything else. But I know that, one of the things that people say a lot about me is that I'm full of love. It doesn't mean I'm not a badass. I'm not weak because I'm full of love. But, it just means that I don't come to, I don't intimidate people. People sometimes say I'm intimidating, but I don't intimidate people. I really don't. Do I, Kim? So this week we explored, sometimes I come to people with these cold, hard facts, because I had to have some cold, hard facts. I had to have cold, hard facts with somebody this morning, because I will not sugarcoat stuff. It's like, no, I'm not sugarcoating this. I'm going to tell you this, because what you say you want and what you're doing are not in alignment. As a coach, that's what I have to tell people. As a sponsor, that's what I have to tell people, because I can't sugarcoat stuff. We can't save your face and your butt at the same time, and those survival skills will keep us in this same loop. So when we hear the word compatibility, our minds often go immediately to another person, a partner, a friend, a family member, or even a workplace. Yet we discovered that every can't pour from an empty cup. Self-love is where love should come from, not from fear. Absolutely. Because when you got two people, I think when you got two people who have self-love, it just bounces off of each other. It's just not to where we're seeking, am I going to get this, right? Because we already have love. So it's like there's some freedom there, So yet we discovered that every relationship begins with the one that we have with ourselves. So on Monday, we talked about opening ourselves up to the idea of compatibility before we're in the middle of pain and conflict. So sometimes physical attraction, chemistry, or even familiarity can draw us toward people, opportunities, and environments that awaken parts of us that needed attention and healing. That's all. Is it just needs attention and healing. It's not you're a failure or anything like that. Sometimes those relationships that I've had in my past that weren't healthy for me, they were catalysts for my growth. Jen, there you are, darling. I'm thinking about you. How are you doing today? I'm glad you made it back. I was thinking about you yesterday, and I think about you today too. I hope you're doing well today, that you're able to breathe a little bit more today. I know yesterday was probably rough for you, but yeah. Grow through what we go through. Absolutely, John London. We can be going through it or growing through it, and I prefer to be growing through it, and it's a catalyst. That's rather than feeling like a victim and villainizing somebody else, because it keeps you in a loop, So if we haven't taken time to understand our own values, we may overlook them in the beginning only to recognize their importance after they've been compromised, right? We don't want to compromise ourselves. We always learn through struggles. Yes, we do, Kim. We sure do. We always learn. Jen, yes, better today than the last two. I'm glad. I hope you'll have a good, relaxing weekend. I do. Yes, Mexico is having extreme heat like Texas. I walked all the way down to that meeting this morning on the port side. So I walked all the way to port side. I don't know how much I walked today. I walked a while in this heat. And then I went to the beach. And then I did take the Collectivo back up to the Chedraui to the grocery store. And then I walked from the grocery store to another grocery store. And then, I walked home first, then to the grocery store, and then to go pick up my eggs. And then I walked back home. I was walking those streets from 8 in the morning till noon, and it was hot. I was sweating. John London, I had one of those catalyst relationships once. The biggest changes come from love and relationships often. Absolutely. That's how we can know ourselves. We can learn who we are rather than looking at picking at them. It's like, what does this tell me? What do I want? Because a lot of times people, when they get hurt in their relationships, they're like, oh, I don't want this. So they're navigating from that. I don't want this to happen again. I don't want this to happen again. But the more they give that energy, because we talked about energy, right? The more you give energy to that, the more you're attracting that energy, because that's the only way you're looking. So you're not looking at all the splendor. So when I do suggest to people to make that list about what you do want in a relationship rather than what you don't want, give the energy to what you do want. What did this teach you that you want over here? And yes, sweating it. You saw me sweating out there, girl. I was sweating. I did a live on Facebook, and I was like, and that was just the light sweat at 9 a.m. By the time, but thankfully I did get wet in that beach, and and got out of the beach and walked back for a little while, and then got the Collectivo. Jason Stillwell. My picker was definitely broke. I spent years trying to get a false ideal that doesn't exist. Now I found someone who is compatible as we walk the same faith. It's the beautiful thing. Yes, yes. I love that for you, Jason Stillwell. That is amazing. And it's getting honest with ourselves, right? What's not working, so that we can grow towards what is going to work. John London, I often stay indoors when it's too hot. Did you drink it? I sure did, John London. I drink a lot of water. I do stay hydrated for sure. And yes, but drinking that water is the key. And I bet you I'll be in the house all weekend long now. Because on Mondays and Fridays, I get out and I walk those long distances, probably a couple of miles in that heat. I don't know how much it is. It might be 4 miles. I think somebody told me how much I was walking. I have it in my phone, but I haven't looked at my phone to see how much I walked today. But it was a lot. It was a lot. And thank you for asking. I sure do drink. Well, I love water. I drink a lot of water. Based in reality. Exactly. It's exactly based in reality, because it's so easy to slip into illusion when we have wounds. Our wounded self wants to slip into illusion. But once we do the healing work, we can see through that illusion. Exactly, Jason Stillwell. So healing invites us to understand our choices with compassion instead of judgment. You know, if we heal from those wounds, it was profound. You know, when my therapist told me when I got a divorce, she's like, Stacey, you don't date for a year. And I didn't date for a year. And it was very insightful. You know, it helped me to get to know myself, because that's the thing is, hey, Dad and Mike, a lot of people bounce. And so when we get to know ourselves and know our values, what I like, because what I like is more important than what I don't like, or just as important as what I don't like anyway. But I want to stay focused on what it is that I like. So then when I see something I don't like, it's like, oh, hello, Dominic. So when I see something I don't like, I just know, okay, I just don't like that, without judgment, with just, discernment. Yeah, today's, y'all know Mama's in Texas, and we all know Texas is hot, and so is where Kim is. Kim's in Tennessee, and it's hot in Tennessee too. Those southern states are roasting over there. So it isn't as hot over here as it is over there with y'all, but we got the humidity. We got more humidity than y'all. So I be dripping when I come home. My hair's all wet. When I come off those mean streets, I got wet hair all underneath here. My clothes, my shirt's all wet. I have to lay down when I come in from those mean streets. So on Wednesday, we explored values, 82 and rain in Tennessee. See, at least you got some rain. I keep hoping we got a few sprinkles, thank goodness, because my umbrella, I walk with an umbrella so the sun's not beating totally down on me. Thank you, Dominic. So I walk with that umbrella, but my umbrella, the wind came and picked it up a little bit. It was a strong breeze and broke my umbrella, so I had to trash my umbrella. And, Source is so good. The universe is so good, because then I go walking to get my huevitos, my eggs. And when I'm going to pick up my eggs, no umbrella, I got a little bit of cloud cover and just a few sprinkles, nothing serious, but it was enough to cool off things. So it was good. So on Wednesday, we explored values, not as words on a list, but as a compass to guide our lives. Many of us were taught rules, responsibilities, expectations, or simply how to survive. Few of us were ever asked what truly matters to us, those values, or how to create our values. Dominic, didn't you guys deal with that tropical depression a couple of weeks ago? We haven't had a lot of anything down here. I'm near Cancun. And it's just been really hot and humid. We've had a few little rains, but nothing yet on tropical storms or anything like that. It's just been hot and humid, sweaty. So our values become a foundation of trust. They help us recognize when our choices reflect who we are and when we've drifted away from ourselves. That's my Grinch making that noise. Yeah, y'all getting rain over there. We're not getting rain over here. No. Boop, boop. Isn't that cute when he goes, boop, boop? He'll do his little chatter and he's like, boop, boop. So many of us also learned relationships by watching. Kim likes those. I know that's Kim's hearts, right, Kim? Many of us also learned relationships by watching the adults around us. If conflict, criticism, inconsistency, or emotional distance were familiar, those experiences often shaped our beliefs about love, safety, and connection. A lot of us grow up saying, I just don't want to do like they did. I know you love Grinchy. Grinchy loves you too. And so, just navigating from don't want to do like they did. That's the don'ts. We want to grow up to the do's. We want to do the do. What is it that we want to do? Rather than focusing on those. So those childhood beliefs don't just disappear with age. Those become our belief system about what love is when we see that growing up. Some of these things that we've seen, it becomes our belief system. So thinking about what your belief system is so that you can develop your values, because your belief system and your values go hand in hand. That's what I was saying on Facebook this morning, right, Kim? So is that knowing what your belief system is, then you can guide your values. You know, we're in the full moon. I think I wrote something about the full moon down here. But we just had the full moon, and the full moon isn't for us to cop out about and say, oh, and just blame it on the full moon. We empowering ourselves. We don't blame even the moon, right, y'all? So, but the moon does have energy. When I'm talking about energy, the moon has enough energy to move the seas. So the real thing is with this energy, the reason this energy comes around is the moon comes in phases and life comes in phases. And so what happens is that feelings come with the moon. The moon shifts feelings a lot. That's why a lot of people act up or act out, because that really is a thing where people act up and act out. You just ask any police department teacher or where Kim works and things like this. The full moon does have a lot of energy to it. But what it does is it intensifies those belief systems and feelings underneath the belief systems. So if you want different feelings, you've got to take a look at your values and align with your values. Stay focused on your values rather than that. Dominic, what about motivation? That's very important. It is important, Dominic. Intention and motivation. Because when we look at our belief systems, if we're in survival mode, we're behaving out of survival mode, but that's where the action is going to come, is from that motivation. So in the morning, I like to set intentions in the morning when I get up, about, well, what am I going to do today? To get up with excitement and zeal. I don't get up dreading the day. I'm lucky to be getting up today, because someday it's probably going to be pretty hard to get out of bed, So as long as I can get up before I get up out of the bed, it's like saying thank you, having gratitude that I can get up out of the bed. Having gratitude that I can go up to my rooftop and look at the sunrise or look at the stars if I get up that early. But it's these things being, not getting up with dread, not getting up with these old tapes, because a lot of people get up with these old tapes in their head. And so what is our intention? Our intention and motivation go together, because the intention comes from the mind, and our human beingness, and the motivation comes from our human doingness. But how many times when people feel overwhelmed, they say, I don't feel like it. I'm retired. I like to go on long drives in the morning. I'm a morning person. That's good. That's good. I'm a morning person too. So not everybody, is down for the morning people, but I'm a morning person also. My brain cells start like dwindling down as the evening goes on, and it's like, no, I'm just chilling. So as we reconnect with ourselves, we begin developing trust, not only in others, but in our own ability to make choices that honor our values. We become less focused on searching for proof that we're worthy of love. Did you used to do that, Jason Stillwell? I used to look for proof that I was worthy of love. Look for signs. A lot of people are looking for proof and for signs, but you are the proof. You are the sign. It's all in you, And more committed in living in a way that reflects our worth that has always existed within us. We were born with self-worth. We were born worthy. There's nothing, it was later that, when we're born, we don't even know who source is. I live near Cancun in Mexico, Pookie. So, but when we're born, we don't even know about our source. Our parents, we think, are our source when we're born, So we don't even know about that. So we're not even yet feeling judged by that, because you were born worthy. So remembering who you are, because chances are when we've tried to earn love, tried to deserve love, we've become somebody other than who we are. And who we are is fine and divine. It's just remembering who we were before we picked up survival skills, before we picked up these tapes. Some of these tapes that says I'm not good enough because I don't look like this. Tapes that say I'm not good enough because I can't do that like somebody else can. That comparison being the thief of joy in your self-esteem, but self-esteem starts with yourself. We come into this world, we come in with our parents or whatever, but we come in with ourselves unless you're a twin. And when we go out of this world, we're going to go out with ourselves. So yourself is very important, because we're in the dash. What are we going to do in the dash? We're going to have a lot of learning experiences. That's what we're going to do in the dash. We become less focused on searching for proof that we're worthy of love and more committed in living in a way that respects our worth that has always existed within us. That's the goal. That's what we're focused on. So compatibility is no longer something we hope to find. I know that I used to think that, oh, you meet people and then you see if I'm compatible with them. But when we know our compatibility, it's not, it's like, are they compatible with me? Right? Jason Stillwell, yes, I spent my youth trying hard to getting acceptance from my dad. Me too, and it didn't work. Now that I'm back in college and being successful, he actually accepts me and wants updates. That happened with me too, Jason. Yeah, because I always wanted his acceptance when I quit drinking, because I drank and smoked with my dad. And when I quit drinking, I quit caring if I had his acceptance, and I got his acceptance when I quit. So I totally get that. I'm so proud of you. And it's so freeing when we're not, trying to get that acceptance, right? Dominic, in your mind, can you feel like you can do 1,000 things, but your body says nope? I don't know, because I'm still very active. There's things that I know in my mind that what I can and can't do. There's things that I prefer not to do. Like, this trauma stuff goes deep. And when I was little, I almost drowned. I did learn how to swim after I almost drowned, but hence, I still don't like to go snorkeling, even though I live down here in this beautiful place. I'm not trying to get under the water and get the pressure, under the water. So I can go get in the water, I can swim in the water, but I'm not trying to, go down in the water and everything. So there's limitations there. I don't want to snow ski. That's not something on my list to do, because I don't think that would be successful for me. So I don't even water ski. But it just depends on, what we want to do with our body. There's things I could do with my body when I was younger. I'm double jointed. I could do back bend flips. I'm not trying to do no back bend flips anymore, but I still do a little bit of yoga and toning and stuff like that. So I am gentler on my body than I used to be. So compatibility is something does that answer, Dominic, or what did you want to expand on? What are some things that a fear going under? It's just uncomfortability. I'm just uncomfortable with it. I don't like it. It's just not a desire. That's what. My alcohol habit was very bad. I grew up in addiction. My dad was an addict, an alcoholic, but it's just a lot of times it's not just alcohol. You see, there's food addiction. I work with people with food addiction, drug addiction. Alcohol is a drug. Alcohol is a drug. And so I work with those addictions. There's also shopping as an addiction. Chaos can even be addiction. Love can be an addiction. There you are, Angela. We were talking about you earlier. You are late. We were talking about you. We've been waiting for your questions because I started talking about codependency. I said, oh, if Angela was here, man, she would ask some great questions. And John London agreed. So we're glad you're here now. It's okay if you're late to the party. We're glad you're here. You're on time. So yes, my addiction to alcohol was bad, but I have 29 years clean and sober. I haven't used any drugs, alcohol, nothing in 29 years. I mean, when I've had tooth work, I had to use some drugs, but I only used it like it was prescribed and not very long. Jason Stillwell, yes, just being yourself and not trying to be something you're not really changes the dynamic, and it changes more than being, it takes nothing more. I know, right, Jason? We put ourselves into hoops to become other people, or I did, and I guess maybe you did too, you can relate. Trying to become other people to be accepted. And it went back to that acceptance with Dad, right? It goes back to that acceptance. It goes back to this being needed. It goes back to this, and so now, in looking at relationships, that we want to be in a relationship. Not that somebody needs us in a relationship, that we want to be there, because that's authenticity, not obligation. I know, we're glad Angela is here. Of course we remember you. We're so happy that you're here. Dominic, I think everything is an addiction as long as you know how to deal with it. Everything can be an addiction. And thank you, Pookie. Yes, gaming is an addiction too, you know. And sometimes we just pick our battles because I still love coffee, although I do only drink like 2 cups in the morning. And every once in a while, I have a coffee in the afternoon, like at 3. Not every day. It's a treat when I get to have a coffee at 3 in the afternoon. You know, so I do monitor myself on the coffee, but that's the, you know, are we going to be perfect? What is perfect? But it is a very good thing that I haven't drank in 29 years. I had somebody send me something this morning. You know, a lot of people compare me to Beth Dutton because I'm kind of gritty, you know, and so somebody this morning sent me a clip of Beth Dutton and her dad talking, and she was talking about, she said, the person who sent it to me said, this reminds me of something you told me once, because the dad's telling Beth Dutton, you know, from Yellowstone, he's saying something about tequila, and she said, you know, if I drink that tequila, I'm not going to do it halfway. If I drink that tequila, I'm going to eat the worm. And if I eat the worm, nobody wants to see that. And that's what I tell people now, because down here in Mexico, they say that tequila is Mexico's water. And I do tell people, y'all don't want to see that. Angela. Yes. Thank y'all so much. I just love y'all. I love my Friday nights with y'all. So we're talking about compatibility still tonight, Angela. So let me know what your questions are. So compatibility is no longer something we hope to find. It becomes something we cultivate through honesty, self-awareness, trust, healthy boundaries, and choices that respect our values. You know, so we talked about compatibility, that, you know, our values. Someone asked, what's 5 things to say on a date? That was a good question, you know, to ask on a date. And, you know, someone mentioned values. Someone had mentioned, you know, all addictions are a distraction to avoid dealing with anxiety. Yeah, they're a coping skill, a coping mechanism is what it is that when we don't know how to cope with something, we resort to something outside of ourselves to make us feel better, take off the edge. So whether our relationships involve a partner, family, friendships, work, or simply the relationship that we have with ourselves, remember that the healthier relationship that you're with yourself becomes, the healthier every other relationship around you will become, and that has an opportunity to become. You've been trying to figure out what you value? I'll have to send you the list because you didn't get to come Monday because you were at work. I have to send you the list of values. I'll do that. Yes, I'll send you a list of values. Let me make myself a note, because you know I'll forget things if I don't write it down. Send Kim list of values. You have them. That's the thing, is that we don't get asked to identify them. You know, and when I do work with couples, a lot of times I want to know what the values are. So I'm glad you're doing that. Mom says, I'm addicted to our Saturday phone calls. Thank you, Mom. So what I'm saying is, the healthier relationship becomes with yourself, the healthier the relationships outside of yourself will become. That there's nothing wrong with you. You're not stupid. You're not lazy. These things that sometimes is self-defeating dialogue, and the things that we're trying to prove that we're not. You're not. It's being able, though, to see what's on the other side of what you're trying to prove. You know, I've shared that I used to try to prove that I wasn't selfish and self-centered, but somebody asked earlier about intentions and motivations. And when I'm just trying to prove something, I'm not coming from honest and true intentions and motivations. That's more of a survival skill if I'm trying to prove something to myself or someone else. Dominic, do you find peace and tranquility in Mexico? I do find peace and tranquility in Mexico. It's very nice. Muy tranquilo here. It's very nice. So yeah, it's not all this hustle and bustle. People have to learn to slow down here, because the instant gratification isn't much here. No. So, this week I want to thank y'all for walking through this with me, for this compatibility thing. Did anyone feel like this was helpful? Did we even know, because it took me a long time to figure out that I needed to be compatible with myself, to be able to gauge whether I'm compatible with something or someone outside of myself. So, did y'all find that that was helpful to you too, to think, to, realize that? So here's what we might have thought compatibility was. I know at one time I thought that this was compatibility, is that compatibility isn't chemistry. I talked about when some people say, well, if we connect, we talked about that intimacy thing. Well, if we connect, do you think that we might be intimate? And it's like, what? So compatibility isn't about chemistry. It isn't butterflies. It isn't obsession. It isn't rescuing, it isn't potential, and it isn't fixing. Compatibility is two emotionally honest people whose values, nervous systems, and willingness to grow can actually support one another. We talked about on one evening one day that some people have never seen real support in their whole entire life. They don't know what support looks like. I just had a man over the weekend that I was working with. And what's cool is his working with me allows him to support his another family member, his brother, because they didn't get support. They had the parents that I talked about in that live, saying, "Are you sure of this?" or "Why do you do that?" or "I don't think you should do this." The parents who are still in their business and telling them what to do and making them feel like they don't make any right choices. They never supported them. Not that they didn't want to support them, that they didn't even know what support looked like, I would guess. And they let their fears, be their care. Because a lot of people think that worry is care. And worry, I like to trust. Because like I said, when we trust ourselves, we're going to trust other people and not worry so much about other people. Kim, very helpful. Makes me really think about what I value and learn if I am compatible with myself. Yes. Yeah, because sometimes we're just looking for somebody outside of ourselves to be compatible, and we have these roles in our minds that we haven't expressed yet. And if we don't know what our values are, then it's hard to see if somebody can fit in that role. Angela, have you ever projected your negative feelings like anger and jealousy on? Ooh, I sure did. A long time ago I did. I've had to work through all of that. Especially the jealousy, because the jealousy was a learned behavior. Because, part of that addiction, of my dad's was he wasn't faithful. So I grew up, and it's, if you grow up and your parents are, have these kind of issues, then jealousy is definitely a thing. Found it helpful. Accepting love starts with giving yourself love. Absolutely. Thank you, John London. So yeah, I was jealousy, and I had to learn what was on the other side of jealousy. I've talked about this before, pretty transparent, that I've been jealous with romantic relationships. I've been jealous with work relationships before, and it came down to that inner child that if I don't feel important enough, that's when little Stacy wants to act up. That's why, talking about that Beth Dutton stuff, Beth Dutton is me if I wouldn't have gotten clean, sober in therapy. You know what I mean? Because I would be trashing some stuff. Hopefully I would be that rich because I would be in jail. But, because I was a little, there was a little bratty Stacy in here that was jealous, that was reckless, that was all these things. And thankfully I got sober, because I definitely had emotional immaturity. And it took a while, even after getting sober, to have emotional maturity and to grow from jealousy to knowing what admiration was. Because the thing was I just didn't learn what admiration was. I didn't learn how to admire people, except for, Elvis Presley or somebody. But but I didn't know what admiration was, so I had to learn that on the other spectrum of jealousy is admiration, and that with that jealousy, that just because I may think that somebody's attractive or I may think that they're, interesting, doesn't mean that I'm not. But see, I used to think that if somebody was interesting or attractive, that when comparing myself, I didn't feel like I was, right? But that's not true. We live in an unlimited universe, an unlimited world. And there's plenty of us to be attractive. We're all specially unspecial. We're all perfectly imperfect. Isn't that wonderful? Thank you, Angela. We know we can count on you to ask some amazing questions. I hope that was helpful. Yes, thank you, John London. Found accepting love starts with giving yourself love, absolutely, and learning what that is, and knowing that there's nothing wrong with us while we get to learn our own special love. Our own special love. Dominic, maybe we need to worry about ourselves because I don't think other people are going to worry about us. I think you're right, Dominic. Exactly. And worry, I used to have this plaque in my bathroom that says, worry ends where faith begins. And so I don't tell people who or what to believe, but I know for me, it helps me to believe in a power greater than myself to make it through this life these days, because I like to talk to the moon and the stars and all of these things that are magnificent, that are majestic. I love seeing these things, and they have nothing to do with me, but I get to take it in and just awe, just be in awe at it, So so worry ends where faith begins, whatever that looks like. And faith is really geared toward what we want, Katan Patel, hello, hello. Mom, I hate when people treat me like I don't have one active brain cell. Well, I don't like to be treated that way too, but I probably won't be around those people very, very long if they do. But also, I don't take it on because other people's ignorance isn't my problem. If they want to be treating me like I'm ignorant, then there's sometimes people's stuff bucks up against each other. And so people can be insecurity. Maybe they're insecure. See, this is what I get to tell clients, is a lot of times, because even one of my clients the other week, they thought that some people were talking about them in the office. And it's like, well, what if they're afraid you're talking about them? See, this is the projection reflection thing, is that sometimes we may have people who are giving us some grief, but they may be afraid of us, and so this is where we can butt heads. And so what are we going to give our energy to? There's so many more people that realize you got more than one active brain cell. So it's important to focus on those rather than give our power away, Face glow is good. Okay, thank you. Jen, thank you, Angela. The feeling is mutual. Hope you're having a great Friday evening. Yes, yes. Kim, faithfulness, yes, another value. Absolutely, that is a value. Angela, I'm enjoying my Friday night here. Yay. Kim, go to prison every day just waiting for Friday Night Live. I just love you. For y'all that don't know, Kim works in the prison, so she's not in trouble, y'all. Dominic, Mara, everyone, I've got a lot of special loves in my life. I do not have a single special love in my life except my Grinch. Except for Grinch. Angela, your answers and explanations are always, thank you. I'm glad. John London, I feel that when I don't love myself, I can tend to live life like a death wish and not value my life enough. I know, right? But that's the thing, is that we can grow from that. And I think you've grown from that. I've grown from that. And we can have compassion for people who haven't, but at the same time, know that they have to do it. We can't fix them. Can't fix them. Raven, I'm conformed to be what he expected. Drinking helped me deal with it. It was a confining relationship. I changed myself for him. I hate that for you, Raven. You're such a beautiful soul, and you will grow from this. It just takes time, and giving yourself time and giving yourself grace, and so I get that I've done that before. And yeah, I've done that before. And that's why I always try to teach on here, return into ourselves, is because a lot of times we twist ourselves into pretzels. I know in codependency, I talk about codependency a lot here, and I'm pretty transparent that I struggled with codependency. And in this codependency, I bent myself into a pretzel to please other people. And then, why did I do that? Fear of abandonment. And did I still end up abandoned? Yes, because what? We're abandoning ourselves, right, Raven? We abandon ourselves when we turn into something for somebody else. That's abandoning ourselves. So, I talked about those values the other evening, or the Wednesday. Wednesday, if you want to watch Wednesdays, it talks about the values. Because a lot of times, I don't know if you thought, but a lot of times after the relationship ends, we think about, this is what I value, this is what I value, this is what I value. But if we are clear and transparent with those values in the beginning, we won't be wasting our time, because a lot of people feel like, oh, this was a waste of my time. Well, if we learn from it, and you will, learning what you do want from what you didn't want, but healing what you didn't want, because it did happen. The dissatisfaction at trying to, just never feeling good enough, right? Just never feeling like you could do anything right in somebody's eyes, and that hurts. Dominic, explain to me how you can pull away from negativity and the ignorance in this world. Well, I don't look at it, because I don't know if if you're scrolling, I look at some of the negativity in this world because I am a single woman and I watch 48 Hours with my Grinch. They tease him. There's all kinds of reels on Instagram about single women who, would rather sit home watching 48 Hours with their pets than go out. And I'm one of those. But I don't get into all the political things and all of that. I have my own political views. It's not like I'm blind to it, but I don't obsess. And so I know when to quit scrolling. Sometimes it's hard to not scroll, but you got to quit scrolling, put the phone down, get out in nature. That's how I deal with it, because nature is so beautiful. When I get out here and do these walks, is how I deal with it. And so nature can heal a lot of things, but also reading. I do read. I got a lot of literature, and on here there's so much good stuff that we can feed that algorithm. And I want to thank you all for being with me tonight and feeding this algorithm, because it's more of a healing algorithm. You could be concerned about what Fauci's saying, or you could be concerned about what this person's saying, and you could be concerned with what this person's saying, but y'all are here with me. And that makes me so happy, because, you can feed that negative algorithm, or you can be here, working on yourself and giving yourself thoughts and asking these amazing questions. And I appreciate these questions and everything, because it helps us all, because we are a collective. I do believe in unity and community. And what you're talking about too is there's so much out there that could divide us. So thank you, Dominic, for being a part of this and asking that question. I hope that was helpful. Codependents abandon themselves to make other people happy. Absolutely. And, we don't even know we're codependent. When people say, oh, you're codependent, it's like when they told me I was codependent, I'd be like, I'd blow them off. But when the pain the pain was great enough, and my therapist kept telling me to go to CODA every time I saw her. I had to go to CODA. And there was freedom in learning who I was, because I didn't even know who I was. I had bent myself so much into a pretzel to become somebody else for someone else that I didn't know who I was. Thank you, Dominic. John London, it's really great to hear about the compassion and empathy that comes from overcoming things we have experienced. It is great. It is. Because sometimes we can forget how far we've grown, right? Mom, hopefully I can go outside with my beautiful granddaughter tomorrow. I hope you can go outside with your beautiful granddaughter too. So, here's one of the thoughts I wanted to close with tonight. And then, compatibility isn't chemistry. I think I said this before, but it bears worth saying again. It isn't only, it isn't chemistry. It isn't butterflies. It isn't obsession. It isn't rescuing. It isn't potential, and it isn't fixing. Compatibility is two emotionally honest people whose values, nervous systems, and willingness to grow can actually support one another. where we can cheer each other on. And if we can't cheer, we know that if another's idea, there's a safe place to land, right? Not an I told you so, or, da 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 da. Tay, hello. John London, it's true what Rumi said about the light innerness where the wound is healed. Absolutely. Absolutely, John London. That's what I always tell my girls is, that cry because you're letting the yucky stuff out so the light can get in. Yeah. So here's kind of a metaphor to think about with compatibility. So imagine trying to plug a three-prong plug into a two-prong outlet, right? So neither one's wrong. There's two-prong outlets, there's three-prong outlets. So neither one's broken. They simply aren't compatible. So most relationships aren't failing because someone's bad. We're not doing the victim villain because that's not empowering. They're failing because some people keep trying to force compatibility where there isn't alignment. That's all. So healing doesn't make you better. Healing changes the outlet that you're drawn to. So if you're a three-prong, you'll go to a three-prong instead of trying to fit to the two-prong, right? That's all. So as we close tonight, before we get into our breathing, I wanted to remind you all once again of that full moon. She just looks like, oh, my daughter looks like, yeah. My daughter does look like me in the face. She's built like her daddy, but she looks like me. Angela, it's hard to find people who want to grow. That's why most relationships fail. Bronx, yep. Yes, but I do believe that there's a lot of people who want to grow too. But I think when we look at values and valuable, so many people out there want instant gratification. And I used to be one of those that wanted instant gratification too, that just thought I could connect with people. And I know better now. I know better. And so long as we get to learn, and I do believe that there's people out there, and looking in here in this group, I get to see so many people who do. Dominic, it was good chatting with you too. I hope you'll consider subscribing if you like this kind of content, and then you'll join us again another time, okay? And hit the notification. So, Neto Campo, you did not subscribe. I already know this. Every time you say you subscribe, you don't subscribe. It's okay though. It's okay. So thank you for the hearts. But as we close, so Angela, I do believe that there's somebody, that there's still other people out there. I like what Charles Bronson and Barbara Streisand. He was single like for 3 years. Not Charles Bronson. What's his name? Who is that? Y'all, who is that with Barbara Streisand now? James Brolin. James Brolin said that that's true. A lot of people chase instant gratification and don't have, absolutely. That's the importance of these values. You're exactly right, Angela. So James, the Brolin, anyway, he had about given up. He had been celibate for 3 years, and he had given up on relationships. And then he met Barbara Streisand. And he said when he met her, he just knew, and they've been together a long time now. And so I do believe that there's, I'd like to believe that there are people who, you wait for a while and then that person's there. See, when people want instant gratification, that's the problem. And that's what I had to learn in the relationships that didn't serve me, but they were a catalyst. So what I learned is if I was in this, but I had to heal from those kind of belief systems about myself so that I had my values, because as long as I'm settling, there's not room for a healthy relationship to come in. So you have to be healthy and you have to be willing not to settle to let the healthy relationship come in. So that I'm so glad that I don't think most of us in here, I know that Jason Stillwell, he found his person. Raven, Jason Stillwell found his person. You're going to find a new person, but healing is so important. I knew 1 month after meeting my husband that I was going to marry him. See? And Kim's been married, she's 14 years. So, yeah. So it's, loving ourselves. Loving ourselves. And so, when I was talking about that full moon earlier, and it brings up these intense feelings sometimes. I had a client message me this morning that she's like, I want to work on almost 13. Still, that's a long time. So I had a client call me this morning, or message me this morning, and she's like, I want to work on how not to be reactive. And I said, I just want you to bear in mind that it's been a full moon, you know. Yeah, I think y'all have done 13. So I think y'all are coming on 14, I think. So, but I said, I want to remind you that it's a full moon. It doesn't mean that your feelings aren't valid, because your feelings are valid. But just to remind people that it's intense, and it's not an excuse to have the feelings, but what it is it gives us the opportunity. Yeah, almost 14. So it gives us the opportunity to look at our belief systems, is all that it is. And we're always uncovering from our belief systems. We are. And so, I've been in recovery for 29 years now, but I'm still healing the belief system. Something the other day happened, and I got to look at how my belief system worked with that. And then it had less power over me, because I was crying, because I was emotional. This is a full moon, and so something hit me the wrong way. I thought, oh, they don't care about me. Who of us don't feel like sometimes that people don't care, right? And so I thought somebody that I cared about didn't care about me, and then when I got to looking at where did I develop this thought that because they did this, that meant that they didn't care about me, right? So we are always growing in different levels and layers. There's no plateau. We're not going to get to nirvana till we're dead, I don't think, y'all. I mean, that's just my thoughts. But we can have nirvana. At the same time, we can have our own nirvana, but it's being realistic. It's not like, like Jason was saying earlier, it's about being realistic. Angela, you're right. All of us need to be positive and optimistic about relationships in the future. Absolutely, because we have to believe it to achieve it. That's the thing, is we have to believe it to achieve it. We have to believe that it's there for us to have it. If we don't believe it's there, we're not going to get it, because our belief system, that's the whole thing that I'm talking about with this full moon. Thank you so much, old angry boss. So with looking at this full moon, it just intensifies those feelings. So when I was able to write about those feelings, about, why I thought that didn't mean that that this person didn't care. What it meant was this was conditioning that developed a belief system. And then I got to realize where this come from. And I'm like, oh, no, it don't mean that at all, So that's what the moon challenges us to do, is to, if we've been feeling a little weepy lately, or if we've been feeling a little emotional, or we've been feeling a little edgy, it's just, I want you to take a look at your belief systems. And if you can, write it out. Jason Stillwell, we can all have nirvana anywhere we can hear music. Yes. No, nirvana, yep. That nirvana. And we can have a personal nirvana within us. We all have that, but it just depends on how we define nirvana. A lot of people do seek drugs trying to get nirvana, right? And so it's just finding that spirit within ourselves, because we are all spirited up in here. I know we are amazing spirits up in here. So yeah. So as we close and having that full moon, in mind, thinking about that full moon, releasing those obstacles that hold us back from the nurturing, from the truth, and from the love that's in our essence. We have all of that within us. And so we can reclaim it, as we've lived through many moons, y'all. We've lived through many moons. And so without consciousness of the phases and evolving of life and our growing through it, and as we're consciously growing through it and realize that these are phases, that it doesn't mean this is going to feel this way or last this way forever, and that we will have nirvana, we'll feel like nirvana, or feel like, everything's going our way on some days, and then on other days not. But that's not an indication of who we are. That's life on life's terms. So I want to thank y'all. We're about to do our breathing. Does anybody have anything they want to add this evening before we get into our breathing? I sure want to thank you all for being here tonight, Jen. Lots of good quality people and content here. Thanks again, Stacy, for your great work here, and wish everyone a great productive weekend. Treats for Grinch and namaste to all. Thank you, Jen. I'm so glad you were able to get here tonight and be a part of this. I hope you had a good trip while you were gone, and that the rest of your weekend will be beautiful. Thank you. All right, y'all ready to breathe, darlings? Remember breathing all the way into your tummy. I just love our breathing together, sending out this love with the out breath. Thank you, Angela. I'm so glad you made it this evening. We were looking for you, so thank you. Thank you. All right, I'm getting comfortable. Get comfortable, y'all, so we can breathe. Look at me, I'm looking like alfalfa. Do y'all know who alfalfa is? I know Mama knows who alfalfa is. All right. So we're going to take it. If you're new here and you haven't breathed with us, but just breathing in that peace, that love, your values, and you're valuable. You are valuable. You're worthy. You were born that way. So breathing it in, holding it for 4 counts if you can, but just do the best that you can, and then release gently and slowly out of your mouth, because there's not instant gratification. We're growing in different levels and layers. And I was glad that this evening we could all reflect back to a way that we might have given our power away in the past, ways that we may have, grown from the catalyst of our relationships of the past, and how we're all just doing the best we can today, and it's good enough. Thank you. Grinch and I are very compatible. Are you going to come out and breathe with us? Huh? Are you going to come breathe with us? I guess he's not yet. Let's see. Do you want me to tap so you'll come out? No? He's about to put himself to bed. Yeah, he's tired. Okay. So let's just take a deep breath in. Hold it. And release. Breathe in. Hold it. And release. Breathe in. Hold it. And release. Just 2 more. Breathe in. Hold it. Release. Last one. Breathe. Hold it. And release. All right, he came out. He came out. So y'all have amazing energy. Thank you so much. Can y'all feel it as we breathe? This is just, okay, we get it, Nito. Thank you. All right. So I hope that you all are going to have a fabulous Friday night. John London, are you ready for some blessed and regenerated rest? It's really late where you are. Kim says hi. Say hi, Kim. Say hi. He does. You're very welcome, Angela. Thank you for being here. Kim, thank you as always for moderating. Everyone give Kim a hand or some hearts or something. We thank you for moderating. Jen didn't go anywhere. First time to work on her Memorial Day since she's been gone, but I made it through. Well, you be good to yourself this weekend, Jen, and you have a wonderful weekend. Okay? I look forward to seeing y'all Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time for story time, Jason. Thank you very much, Jason. I appreciate you being here. You always offer some valuable insights too, and I appreciate you sharing your path, your story too. So thank you. Love you all, Kim. Love you, Kim. Thank you so much. And I will send you that list of values. All right. All right, Nato, we'll pray for you. All right. Y'all have a good night. John London, have you gone to sleep? All right. Well, get some blessed, regenerated rest. Angela, thank you so much. Everyone, thank you so much. Jen, sending you lots of love. Jason's. Yeah. Y'all are the best. And I appreciate y'all spending your Friday night with me. I love you. I'll talk to you later. Good night, Kim. I'll get your picture too. All right. I love y'all. Bye. Good night, Angela. Good night, Mom and Raven. All right.